Actually, I'm just going to stick it over here. Sorry, just look my bag out. Right, busy times. Kia ora everyone. Welcome to the 13th Social Sustainability Committee meeting of this triennium. I think it might be a little bit less than that, to be honest. But so great to have you all here. And great to have some people here from our deputations there as well. Going to report back to us. Looking forward to that. And Joanne, don't worry, you haven't been forgotten as well. So in the first instance, if I could have our karakia, Kathy.
Thank you. As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just, so that with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in a spirit of harmony and compassion.
Amen to that. Thank you, Kathy. Going on to number 3, apologies. And first, I'd just like to acknowledge Kirsten online. Good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Great to see you there. We have apologies currently from Guy Burns, Kim Tahiwi, Mia Janet Holborough, and Jackie Elliott as well. She called me just before. Bit of ill health lurking around at the moment. Anyone else have any apologies at all? Yeah, well, that's all right, lunch. No comment. If I could have a mover for that to accept those apologies. Lawrence, thank you, Lawrence. If I have a seconder. All those in favour? Aye, that's passed. Thank you very much. Number 4, declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Do we have anyone that wants to declare a conflict, well, an interest, not really a conflict of interest, but an interest at all? I know you all are interested, but no, that's cool. Public speaking time. Now, Joanne, we've got you in public speaking time, but just letting you know, on our agenda, we do have a space for deputations, and the deputations are our committees, so we'll make sure that they are included as part of the deputations next time. There's not a limit on you for speaking as such. So this is, I think, more of an engagement, an update with regards to your committee, which sits underneath our one, or your working group. So we'll start off with you in public speaking, if that's fine. Saying that, and feel free to come up to the table. Oh, actually, you can come down here if you like, or you can sit down there as well. I'm just letting you know, our target today is to finish around 11:45. As we know, we've got a very interesting meeting on this afternoon, so it just gives us the opportunity to prep for that. Stab Bruce vests will be lined up out back. But interesting, it's going to be a very, very interesting afternoon. So, but after saying that, we've got what I would call a relatively light agenda, which for me is great because that gives us the opportunity to spend the time talking to our groups that are working within the organisation as well, and also have potentially a chat within ourselves as members too. So, Joanne, the floor is yours.
Just a really sort of light update this time round, but we had the opportunity to attend a chat GPT workshop put on by council up at Kiwi2 Park. It was really good, highly recommend it. So if anyone here hasn't done it and it comes up again, go for it. It was really professionally run. It was great. We have been part of the walking sort of network plan, cycleways, bridleways and walkways network plan for the sort of 10-year plan. So looking at what can be done to improve access and safety, and thinking about the future growth of Kapiti. I guess I was a little disappointed we didn't have more disabled people there. I did make that opportunity available to them, but it may be that the times didn't quite work, or that it wasn't really fully accessible. And I guess that's something to flag, not necessarily for this group, but for council, about how they engage with disabled people, because that could have big impacts on some of the work that you may be doing. And then we sort of, most of our time was spent on that. We also had a presentation from Kat Wild. She was talking about sort of the trails network, which was separate to sort of the walking paths, and also looking at sort of things like beach mats and accessibility to the beach, and what we might do to explore that. So they're not that we're committing council to anything, but just exploring as technology becomes more widespread, as technology advances, there may be other options for people to use their own wheelchair devices at the beach, but that's not feasible at this point in time. And we're also looking at our terms of reference. Like many of the advisory groups for council, a lot of them were under review, and ours haven't been updated for quite some time, so we're going through that process at the moment. We're also looking at a work program around some videos to highlight disability issues in the local community. And so that's sort of a bit of a medium sort of term plan, because that will take quite a bit of work. Yep, so that's it from us this time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Quite interesting. Sounds like there's a bit going on, which is superb. I'd say there was just anyone got any questions at all, or anything they'd like to talk to with regards to that?
Yes.
Lawrence.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate that. Love the fact that you're coming in regularly just to keep it in front of us, what's going on in your space. Just a question around your comment around council needing to continue to consider how we're engaging with the disabled community. And I assume in that to help with removing barriers for, yeah. Do you have any thoughts about what some of those barriers might be?
Some of those barriers could be around, not for me, even though I'm deaf, I actually don't use New Zealand Sign Language. I was denied access to it as a child. But your deaf community would find meetings like this inaccessible because we don't have sign language, for example. There might be issues around those who have intellectual impairments attending, if there's no easy read versions or summaries that they could look at for types of business, or even when you promote events being held by councils, it can be very broad. Blind people can't access PDFs and they're often sent out. And I understand why, because it's a security issue, because people can alter Word documents. But we don't highlight, if you need it in another format, please contact us. So we don't make those options available. So those are just some examples off the top of my head.
So in relation to your committee, do you feel that council officers are taking note and working with you with regards to looking at advancing these issues?
Yes. The team under Monique have been really cooperative, and that's one of the reasons why, for example, we're looking at a video to highlight some of the issues that some of our community experience. So, for example, the wheelie bin issue for rubbish days is often an issue, so we've already made a video on that. But we're looking at other videos too around why your dog shouldn't be allowed to get loose, the effect on guide dogs when that happens, or the effect of you having your dog off leash in an area where your dog is supposed to be on leash.
Yep.
So that has a big impact, for example, on autistics and, for that matter, other people who are terrified of dogs. So yes, council have been really proactive, the staff that are allocated to us.
I'm just curious with regards to how your committee works when you meet. My apologies, Lawrence. You're still engaging.
You're doing a follow-up.
Okay, I'll do a follow-up.
It's all good. It's all good, Mr. Chair.
Like the points you just raised there, very good points. Do you guys capture that as part of your minutes with like a list of issues that you'd like to see addressed as such?
We have action points.
Yeah.
So no, we don't. We've only just been allocated a minute taker the last sort of month or two.
Oh.
But that is something that we could take on board. I think that's a very good idea.
Reason I ask is, yes, it's fantastic having the groups here giving updates, but what would also be nice is if you've got minutes, we can circulate them around our table as well. As part of them being circulated back to your members. It'd be great to incorporate us into it so we can just be reading up where you're at as well.
Yep. So I did send them through this morning, but I'm happy to do that regularly in advance of a meeting. So yep.
Yeah. Well, even when the minutes are distributed. Yep. Okay, that's been flagged over there, and that's not something you need to worry about. That's something that council officers can make sure ticks along as well. But that'd be marvellous. Thank you for that, Lawrence.
I'm all good. You are. Sorry, I do not.
Right, yep. Kathy?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Joanne and her group. They do a really good job. And it was brought up at one of the meetings recently, the gentleman in the wheelchair, about how the roots of trees disrupt the footpaths. And I'd like to say thank you to council as well, because I know they've sorted out some footpaths along Remy Road, I think it is, but they're also doing some down at Marine Parade, Patapata Beach. So I think now it's been brought to council's attention with wheelchairs, with the roots of trees, with disrupting the, and making the footpaths uneven. So thanks goes to the group for bringing it up and to council for fixing those kinds of things. Yeah.
And another part of the follow-through as well, Kathy, you're the councillor on that committee. So my sort of expectation is that Kathy will work with regards to following the issues that you're bringing up, because we had those recommendations last time.
Yeah.
We need to see that followed through to an outcome, no matter what that outcome is. Yep.
Yep, we appreciate that, and Kathy has, indicated to the group that she will follow up and advise on any progress, so thanks for that.
We've had a chat about that as well. We'll keep abreast of that one as well.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Mike?
Yeah, kia ora. I just want to pick up on some things that Deputy Mayor Kirby said about accessibility, but more than like physical accessibility, but access to these kinds of forums through our digital forums. What kind of things prohibit people who have a different ability, like our streaming services, because clearly they don't have subtitles, and for people who've got hearing or visual impairments, are there some things that we could look at as a council or our democracy team to actually enhance and improve those streaming services?
For one set of meetings I attend, not council related, there is a transcriber, and so a person can log in and you can have the transcription service running alongside your Zoom or your Teams meeting, and that's often really effective. And particularly if you miss a statement or two, you think, oh, hold on, what was that? And you can go back and have a look, so that's often really helpful. Often people who have struggles with an intellectual disability often need assistance, so that's more challenging to meet because they would probably have to meet that cost themselves unless council wanted to supply someone to help. But I don't know how much interest there would be from that group of disabled people in coming to meetings like this. But even being able to access on Zoom is a help, but there is a digital divide. So often people who are disabled are often also poor. And that's a challenge because they may not have the bandwidth, the data to basically access online.
Mm.
And so that's a challenge for some disabled people to engage with democracy or a democratic process because they can't engage.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of digital services these days that can be automated to transcribe and what have you. That might be very little cost, and I just wanted to raise it with you because clearly if they can't access physically here, if they can access it digitally and have some of those extra tools, it would be an enormous benefit.
The challenge with closed captions is that I personally find they're not very accurate and they're terrible when it comes to any te reo. So it's fine if you're not going to use te reo at all, but if you're going to use te reo, Maori, it doesn't transcribe that at all well. In fact, some of the words come out quite rude, so you probably wouldn't want to use it. Anything starting with WH, for example, you wouldn't want to go there.
Cool. Lovely. That's okay. Thank you, Joanne. It's absolutely marvellous. Much appreciated. Jackie, just letting you know, you're wanting to speak about road issues with road. Happy to make time for that member's business. We'll have plenty of time for that if you like, if you're okay with that. Yep. Fantastic. Okay. That's public speaking. Now move on to the deputations. So we've got an update from the Older Persons Council. That's you, Kevin. Sorry about the confusion. Oh, no, Kevin, Older Persons Council, and... John Hayes. No? Yeah, and you've got John Hayes here as well. And sorry about the confusion earlier in the week, Kevin, with regards to us talking about speaking in public time and that sort of stuff. You guys are a deputation now, so we have a good interactive. No need to request that. It'll actually be fixed in here every meeting if you wish.
Just explain. John and I will give a brief update on Age Friendly,
Yes.
and then I'll do the Alderperson Council. That's okay with everyone?
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for this time, councillors. The age-friendly approach, as you are aware, was adopted, and we're now getting into the doing useful stuff stage. We had a meeting of the great and the good and the doers in this chamber, and that was very well attended. Around about 50 people turned up for that, representing many organisations, and that meeting came up with a number of, well, the way we've interpreted the various comments and requests that came through that are a number of projects that we're beginning to get moving on. With Joanne's excellent presentation, I just have to mention that one of those relates to aids and equipment, and I was talking yesterday to the well-able people about what we could do about this. Basically, actions related to providing aids and equipment like wheelchairs and walking frames. This is not purely a council issue. In fact, many of the issues appear to be in commercial premises. Commercials activities are very difficult right now, so it's difficult providing too much of an impulse. But perhaps it is worthwhile to have a workshop for officers to make sure that planning for future developments does make adequate provision for those wheelchairs, walking frames, and that sort of equipment. Communication is a very, very big issue with the older population. So we've got a project relating to communication, improving it, making information more accessible, and promoting local services, primarily through libraries. The libraries, incidentally, have proved to be an amazing resource in our community. They do more than just dishing out books, as we all know. And I know there's some conversations about the future of libraries. In my humble submission, they've got a very important future. And one of the big issues that we have is just working out how various organisations can be contacted. Now, I've got here a piece of paper that shows there are 10 different directories around our area, and I suspect not one of them are up to date. And so this has proved to be a matter of some real concern. So we are developing a little project for one true source of information. And as an example of what we are intending to do, we've got some funds, some limited funds, and the idea is that we'll be going out and shoulder tapping organisations to see if they can provide a service that we're looking for. Now, in this case, as an example, this conversation hasn't started yet. The Citizens Advice Bureau have got a great advantage in that they actually phone up people every year. I know because I've been phoned up for many, many years, asking if I'm still on the planet and if I'm still fulfilling that particular job. So that constant updating that the Citizen Advice Bureau do is an enormously good service. I'm a little bit worried about the idea of organisations updating themselves a database, because I think that could be a very, very patchy response. So it turns out that the Citizens Advice Bureau have got a wonderful database, and it is web enabled. And I think that with a few more filters, we could come up with very, very close to what was required in that. And I think it could be quite cheap. Also, we are looking at having an expo to celebrate the International Day of Older People on the 1st of October. And other projects, transport is the big one. Now, we've been involved in this game for quite some time, for years, in fact. Every time we've asked the question, transport is the big issue. Every time. As it happens, it's a very interesting trial that's going on in the Tawa area of something called on-demand buses. And I trooped down to the regional council to put in a submission on on-demand buses to say me too, or us too in Kapiti. We'd like to be involved in that. And unusually, it seems as if the submission produced some results. And we hear that Metlink are, in fact, having an independent review into trials of on-demand services elsewhere in the country, including those that have been discontinued. So we'd like to know why they were discontinued. However, the review will provide recommendations on the suitability and financial viability of on-demand services in the wider Greater Wellington region, including Kapiti. So we'll take that as a positive. And the idea of on-demand buses, by the way, is that it's a bit like Uber. So you contact the service and you say, I need to be at the Kapiti Health Centre at 10:30 this morning. And they say, okay, you be out at your front gate by 5 to 10. And this little bus comes along, picks you up, gold card works, and you arrive at the health centre by 10:30. And it seems that it is, in Tawa anyway, is working out very, very well. So we're hoping that that is going to be a way forward in the transport problem. Now, the issue with that is that it is like Uber, it does have an app. And this comes up to the other one of the really big issues we have, and Joanne has just referred to it, the digital divide. And this is a very important part of where we are going to go. In fact, we've got a session coming up on Wednesday of next week where we are trying to work out exactly what the real demands are. What we have heard about is, now I'm with Dr. Kamek in Parapara Umu Beach, and that particular practice supports an app called Manage My Health, which I happen to know a fair bit about. But not all practices have that particular app. There are other apps where you get your medical information, your test results come in. And it is just a wonderful thing. So I'm a great believer in Manage My Health, but many older people just cannot handle it. So we've got to get our heads around, and we've got to help older people access the wonderful services that are available. So we're having a start on that particular project on Wednesday. We're going to explore an expo proposal to make some of those services become better known. And the digital literacy project, I think, is one of the most important. Intergenerational, a lot of conversations about that. We intend to set up a meeting with the Kapiti Youth Council, Volunteer Kapiti. I've got some very good ideas, and the idea is to come up with projects that spread information both ways. So there's a lot that the youth can learn from the older, and there's a tremendous amount that the older can learn from the youth. So the intergenerational aspect was also one of the big themes that came through. So we're beginning to work through a work program, and we intend to report back as and when.
Can I just add to that? As John pointed out, we had this in this room in May. 50-odd people here, from about 20-odd organisations here. From there, we developed some key projects, and John's outlined some of those projects. But it will be a non-contestable fund, so we'll shoulder tap people, because we didn't want to have. If you have a contestable fund, you have to look at all the admin rounder about how you. Yeah, and there will be a person from the reference group will be looking at or responsible for that particular program. As an example, John will be working with, as he just explained, on the digital literacy group. I'll be working on the intergenerational group. So it's not finalised yet, but we're moving along.
just for clarity there, Kevin. So, and I'm just going to use this as a reference. With the Capital Health Advisory Group, they've dropped down into working groups. So there's 5 different working groups within the Capital Health. Am I picking you doing a very similar sort of situation with the working group that you're talking about? Well, the committee you've got there is that you'll have projects and you'll break them down into working groups, or have leads in those spaces that will be the contact person that will follow through. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'd like to point out that I am chair of the Kapiti Age-Friendly Reference Group.
I know
It's
that.
not a working group. And the idea was that it's going to be a working group. That has not emerged. So what we're talking about is a person, or possibly 2 people, as it happens. Wendy Houston's helping me out on the digital literacy effort. And they will be the people overlooking the work that is being done by another organisation. So we're a bit like a conduit. We are going to be the reference, and we will be the people reporting to you. So we're keeping kind of an auditing eye over those working groups. Now, as much as possible, we don't want to form extra groups. And we've just heard from a lady who obviously has got to be involved in the aids and equipment effort. And we've started a conversation in the digital area with a group called Digital Seniors, who already are operating in this area. They are serious. They've employed someone in this area, and they provide individualized tuition. They help people through with whatever issue that particular person has. We are also, and in the meeting on Wednesday, Senior Net are being invited to that, and they will attend. And I mentioned the issue about these medical apps. It seems to me that the Senior Net classroom type, the way they work, would be best suited to skill people up on a particular application, such as Manage My Health and its other equivalents. So it's a matter of getting the resources already in the community, and with a little bit of direction, hopefully producing some results.
Right. I'll go to Lawrence first. I've got a funny feeling I know where that's going to go. And then Nigel, and I'll come back. I've got a couple of questions as well. Lawrence.
So can you just help me with a little bit here? You talked about non-contestable funding for the organisations that are maybe leading some of these initiatives or the working group type things. Am I getting that right? Okay. So for clarity for me, you've got your age-friendly reference group. Older Persons Council is part of that reference group, but is separate. Is that right?
From the Older Persons Council on the representative group. So they are 2 separate organisations.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. I've got that right in my head. And then out of the age-friendly reference group, there are initiatives that have dropped out, of which you mentioned the AIDS equipment, communication, transport, the digital divide, intergenerational being the main ones. And then each of those projects, if you like, or points of focus, have a working group attached to them that will get some funding if there's an organisation that's in there already. Is that right?
Well, that's the way I see it.
Okay.
For example, I mentioned CAB. We all know that CAB could do with some funding at the moment. And it seems to me that there is a possibility, I think it's low-hanging fruit, and I think it could produce for very little expenditure. But probably just a couple of extra filters on an existing resource. That would provide also a little bit of comfort for an organisation within our community that needs it. Another organisation, Volunteer Kapiti, possibly could be a part of the intergenerational project, and Kevin is working through some ideas on that as well. So I'm worried about the working group nomenclature, and I know that's the way the council likes to work. I would prefer that there are organisations doing the work.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to get clarity. I guess it's probably an initiative, and however that's led, there's some packet of funding that's attached to each initiative.
Just as an example, for the intergenerational group, probably, we've not sorted this out yet, but we could look at the likes of Age Concern or Volunteer Capacity as the funding. But they would need to work with the likes of the Youth Council, and I'm trying to arrange, at the moment, I'm trying to arrange a meeting with the Youth Council. My role will be to oversee it and report back to the reference group. That's
Great, that's awesome. Can I just, there's probably a question for staff, and I can see Morag on this. You're going to answer my question.
We might go to Morag now, if that's right.
Kia ora. So I was just going to say, obviously, this is the implementation of the age-friendly approach. So through the Better Off funding, there was $100,000 that we received to support the implementation of this. Working with the age-friendly reference group, the community has come up with areas of focus. That will be those projects that actually implement the approach. We were looking at grant funding. So when we're talking about non-contestable, it would be grant funding for that $100,000. What John has been speaking about is that there will be a lead from the age-friendly reference group that will be supporting the organisations, and we're hoping that there's different community organisations that collaborate together to actually implement these initiatives. So trying to help strengthen the sector at the same time. And that funding obviously is grant funding and would come back, there'll be reports that come back through the age-friendly reference group and then pulling back through to this committee as well in terms of the progress against those.
Back to you, Lawrence.
Brilliant. It's, I knew she'd answer my questions. She's good like that. Thank you.
Kathy.
Oh, thank you. John, with these on-demand buses, with your gold card, are they free or is there a cost to them? No, they are free. Oh, well, that's really good. So maybe that's something we should be working on and trying to get more and have a discussion with Greater Wellington or somebody.
Well, the issue is, I don't think anyone disagrees with the basic premise. There were a lot of advantages. I don't know whether you've noticed, but in the daytime in particular, there's a lot of empty buses running around the place, and it seems to me not a very efficient use of resource. If that moved more to an on-demand service, by definition, you'd have people in the buses, wouldn't you? So it's something that I think everyone agrees is something that we've got to pursue. Certainly that is a view of Metlink, that is the view of the Wellington Regional Council, and that is my view. When I was in Wellington, it was mentioned to me the problem is NZTA, Waka Kotahi, from where the money comes from. And they mentioned that perhaps we could have a joint submission to NZTA, and perhaps that could be the KCDC. It could be the age-friendly reference group, whatever, to put up our plate and to make our case. And I think particularly in Kapiti, where we have two centres that are relatively well catered for in public transport, the rest are not, and the interconnections between our string of pearls is not good. I think that on-demand transport could be particularly suitable to our area.
As well as the age-friendly group making a submission, the Old Persons Council also made a submission, so the two set along the same line, basically. And I just absolutely support John and what it says. It seems to be working in Tower and Linden really, really well, and I think it would go down well here. But you know, there needs to be some investigation into that, because it's different geographical area and population area. But I think it also may be worthwhile to having a chat with Penny Gaylord and the regional council team. But the issue seems to be the money.
Okay. Gina. Councillor
Yeah,
Officer.
I was just going to mention that this has come up at the Company Health Advisory Group as well, and I've followed up with our Access and Transport group. So as Kevin is saying, the issue does seem to be one of funding, and they're thinking about what next, really. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, I did come down here because Gina's obviously sitting here. Just a note that Council's exec team meets with the Greater Wellington exec team on a, I'll say it as regular basis. And I have talked to our chief executive about bringing the issue of transport to that conversation. I think in a number of areas we have had concerns raised about the ongoing transport-related issues, which we don't seem to be getting any traction on. So whilst it's true that we can definitely talk to our Greater Wellington councillors, we are also going to be progressing a conversation at an operational level to see if we can't unpack some of these issues which seem like they could have a, I'll use the word quick win opportunity related to them, and we will take an action to come back to this committee to share what comes out of that conversation.
Cool. I guess thanks for that, Chris. Not wanting to take anything away from the work that's moving forward now, John, because it's brilliant with regards to things that you've got the group in place and ticking along. I guess my concern is that there is that linkage there with perhaps other groups that we've got so that we're not doubling up on things. Or even better, there's ways that synergies can work with regards to attacking the same problem from different angles there as well. So do you feel like that connection is sort of there at the moment, or are we sort of working towards that with regards to really a new approach happening here and you're starting to see movement with regards to things? Would that?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, you've
Look.
been involved in the process for a couple of years now, and so we're at the, I suppose we're at the rock face now with regards to delivery.
Look, my concern is, as always, there are so many organisations and groups trying to do good work, and coordination is the issue. Now, on Wednesday, we're going to have a meeting, and I think we'll have a reasonable turnout. My concern is that the non-joiners, the non-attenders of meetings, the people who possibly could respond to best or could benefit most from the kinds of things that could come out of that meeting will not be there, and we won't know about them. And that applies to organisations as well. Councillor Wilson and I sit on a committee and we see these people coming forward with initiatives. Often we've got people doing pretty much the same thing in different areas and doubling up, and that waste of resource is something that I really don't want to do or perpetuate, which is the reason we want to use existing organisations to do the work.
Chris, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I guess I think to lean into, and I think I have had the pleasure of working with the age-friendly reference group and know the expertise and experience that we have on the table. I did wonder, as we're starting to really bring the various advisory groups and reference groups to the table, whether there's an opportunity to look at that forward work program for each of those groups, and just to make sure that we are identifying those synergies or where there's an opportunity to work together so that we're making the best use of our expertise and resource. I think that's something that council officers could support. And maybe come back once we've got all of those work programs in place, because I know we're at a slightly different pace in some areas, that might be something that we could work together and help and bring back some advice to this committee, but also to the various reference groups or advisory groups that we're supporting.
And I'll just make it really clear, John, that's not putting a handbrake on what you guys are doing. You know, it's working in part. So just checking, there's a secretariat with this group, and as such, you guys have got support in that respect? Yeah, and I'm just double checking. So that's all moving along, because I guess another part of this was the lens approach with regards to council work programs as well. I don't know if that was going to be something that slips into ongoing agendas per se.
Sorry, I'm going to take that one. The answer is yes. So, just to clarify, I think, Martin, you're referring to our new strategic architecture, and we obviously use the age-friendly approach as our first step in bringing in something new to the way that we're viewing our documentation and our structure. And we agreed that the age-friendly approach would be something that filtered through the strategies that you see coming back to us, and then as we undertake a review of our existing material, we will be starting to ensure that we've got that lens applied to those things. So we will be working with the age-friendly reference group and other advisory groups to make sure that those lenses, that they've got a chance to say that, yes, I can see that lens being developed. But that's in its early stages as well.
Appreciate that.
So we'll be working with the team you see across here and others in the organisation to make sure that as we slowly go through and do that, we would be looking to do that as well. So yes, that's on our radar.
Lovely. And Morag, my apologies. Your mic's smack bang on either side of Nigel's head, so I can't see it. So.
That's okay. I was just going to say, so yes, there is support for the age-friendly reference group. It's through the Connected Communities team, Climate Action and Connected Communities. And in terms of the advisory groups that sit within the support of that team, they are working on the work programs as well, and so they would be coming back up in terms of what those advisory groups are wanting themselves to achieve.
Lovely.
As well, as from a council perspective, what we're hoping that they'll be involved in too. And just in terms of how for example, the age-friendly approach and that lens that can come across it, so and how that can work on the ground. As an example, there was recently the Regional Public Transport Plan workshop, and through that conversation, officers were able to raise up the focus areas that approach had raised. Excellent. And actually pull through and make connections at an operational level about how we might progress some of those. So those conversations are already happening. So that lens approach really can make a difference already.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. It's sort of what we're trying to achieve. So I guess coming back to the two gentlemen at the end of the table, from where we've been to where we're heading, are you liking the direction we're going?
Yeah, I'm unusually optimistic. So.
Yeah, it's taken us a while to get this far, but we've still got quite a way to go too. Yeah, but we're comfortable. I think all the reference group is comfortable with where we're at with it.
Yep, that's fantastic. That's fantastic news. And you'd be quite comfortable doing this report back every 6 weeks to this committee as well, just touching base? Would be fantastic. Kevin, I'm aware that you had some issues with regards to the pedestrian crossings or something like that out here. Is that something you wanted to bring up now? Well, John, are you happy with where at with that?
Absolutely, thank you.
Fantastic. Oh, sorry, Nigel.
Oh, yeah. Just a couple of points. The Kapiti actually had we had on-demand buses in the past. There was the Paikokariki shopper service and the Otahinga shopper service. And they were about to get the axe when I started at Regional Council. So we kept them going for 9 years, but they've gone. But there is the example of those. So if you're talking to Regional Council, I agree. I actually think in order to get some progress on this, you need to bypass the politician as much as you can, and talk directly with officers to get some things done. We've had so many hold-ups particularly on public transport up here in the last 9 years or so. So I think it's a good idea. In terms of I just want to make a comment about the digital seniors. John was talking about the new group, the digital seniors. In fact, they're over in the library as we speak, between 10 and 12 on a Thursday. Just to proselytise on their behalf, there is a growing gap, and the gap is going to be almost exponential with ChatGPT. And already we're starting to hear, and you guys are probably hearing this too, is that younger people are operating on an entirely different platform from older people. they are moving into a technology that older people just don't know about. So there's a lot of older people who've been on, they've been on the internet for quite a long time and they understand how that works, but chat is just leaving them behind, and so are a whole bunch of other apps and programs. So digital seniors, I extol their virtues. They're fantastic, and I think we should be doing everything we can to encourage them. In fact, I think as the library is, the library's been very supportive, which is fantastic. So I would continue to support that. And the last bit is about a database. Waikanae Health, for instance, have a thing called My Indice, which you can get all of your tests, records, everything's kept there. One of the things that bugs me is that these health centres didn't actually sit around a table and say, hey, look what we've got. You want one of these? So they've all got their own, they've got very different systems, which means the portability between them gets really tricky, right? And then you've got other health centres in Wellington. As we know, a significant number of our population here are immigrants from Wellington. And they're welcome, of course, but they bring with them health records, etc., which aren't accessible by the local. So I would just encourage any of that work that helps set up those workable databases, and if they can get homogenised as much as possible. But I mean, good luck with that, but I would support it 100%.
Councillor, at one stage I was a member of the Community Health Committee, I think it was called, set up by Campus. And one of my prime responsibilities was sitting in a subgroup overlooking Manage My Health. And at that stage there was only one other competing system, and that came from Auckland, of course. Auckland's got to do it differently. And I'd never heard of My Indice until just a few weeks ago. Apparently there's a lot of people having some issues with it. And it is the most frustrating thing. If I can give you a little anecdote, Kerry Prendergast, who was chair of that committee, her husband, who you possibly know, had a heart attack in Taranaki. He'd had all the tests in Wellington the week before. But as he had the heart attack in Taranaki, they had to go through all of the same tests again, highly expensive tests, but they in Taranaki either could not or would not get the results from Wellington. If you've got it on your phone, you get over a lot of the issue, don't you? It's got the potential to save a lot of money and potentially lives as well.
Excellent, thank you for that. No, I was just pointing out your senior, the group that's over in the library. We've also got the senior net as well. I think we've got to be a little bit careful that that those groups are working together as well. Cool.
If I can just give you a little bit of background here, the Chief Executive Officer of Digital Seniors contacted me in December, and she asked what the potential was to move into the Kapiti area. And the two things I said to her, look, before we give you any support at all, I want you to talk to SeniorNet and to the libraries, who are both in this space. And I want to make sure that we're not duplicating services here. So they talk, and as I tried to explain before, SeniorNet have got a class type of paradigm. That's the way they work. And not all people relate well to that. And besides that, you've got to wait until the relevant class comes up, if it comes up, before it's useful to you. The digital seniors right now are coping with whatever the issue is that individual has. It's a different paradigm. And I believe that the libraries have been really supportive, and I think it helps out the libraries, possibly take some of the load off them, and I think we're all winners here.
And look, awesome job, John, because it's really, that said, it's oiling the system, make sure it is all connected. One quick point I would make with regards to Citizens Advice Bureau, we've hopefully leveraged the rent for them for the next year through the long-term plan, so they shouldn't be under as much duress as they have been over the last little while, and the conversation about how that might be ongoing will be one that's had in the coming 12 months as well. Excellent. Now, look, just letting you know, I'm obviously leaving a lot of leeway with regards to the conversations. Might not be able to do that at the next meeting because we might have officers' reports, but it's been fantastic actually getting a handle on what it is you guys are doing, and it's absolutely fantastic to see the progress that's happening and the realisation of what's been a long journey to get to this point. And thank you for your patience, tenacity, and getting it done.
Thank you.
Now, Kevin, you wanted to touch on the from the older person's count?
Yeah, I'm aware of, taking up time on
That's all right.
at the time. I was going to give a report about the Older Persons Council, what it's been doing for the past 6 months and where we intend to head over the next 6 months.
Sure.
And over the past 6 months, I suppose some of the main issues have been the Older Persons Housing Review. I need to say that council staff have been very good on that. We had constant updates about it, and we've had issues about road safety. One of them was the refuge down on Capital Road outside Seven Oaks. I've got another issue that's just recently come up that I want to discuss. Anne Gregory from the Health Aging Network is joining the OPC, and we'll need to work out some stuff with her there. Of course, a big issue for us was the long-term plan, and most of the stuff you saw in the red long-term plan were issues that were raised over the past 6 months or so in the council there. If I could just make a comment, when we were preparing the long-term plan, we got a couple of, I got a few people asking me how to make a submission to and when I thought about it, I explained it to them, but I thought maybe the council should actually put some guidelines on their websites about that. That would help people, something to help people who want to make a submission, really. Somewhere for you to think about. And for the future, we will be keeping an eye on the water reform. The legislation will go through the House, as I understand it, sometime this year, probably in implementation on 1 July next year, really. So it's something we will need to keep an eye on there. And of course, the age-friendly, we give updates. I give updates on that. We're also looking at how we can recruit new members to the OPC. I think COVID had a lot to, with the lockdown and where people never got used to. We had less than a handful of meetings over about 2 years during COVID, so people just abandoned it really. It's coming back slowly, but I think we need to do some advertising, if you like, and I'm going to talk to you council media people about what we can do there. And when I thought about that, I actually think the advisory groups and those groups that work with council, actually it would be a good idea for council to do some work with them about media profile. Give them a public pat on the back because they're all volunteers. And also that may well help them. And it also shows the general public that council is using democracy, if you like, in advice of these groups, because I suspect a lot of people out there don't know that these groups exist, really. And,
what's your relationship like with the with Grey Power as such? Obviously, they've got a big database.
I'm a member of Grey Power. My relationship is, I'm not on the committee, but yeah, I get on with them.
More along the lines that could
It's a
be a good
working
platform.
relationship, I would say.
That could be a good platform to advertise for
Yeah.
people that's interest there as well.
I give reports to on the general meetings, not the committee meetings. When they have these general meetings every 3 months, I give reports about housing and the older person's housing and age-friendly and that sort of thing. The other issue that's cropped up in the past couple of weeks is that there are two retirement villages down Review Road here. Well, actually, one's a retirement village, one's a lifestyle village where you have to be over 50. They're having problems, it seems, with crossing the road down there with refuges. The refuge at the Far Island on there's blind spots there, and this near island here is they reckon the refuges are too close to the island. Traffic's coming around. The suggestion is that install a refuge near the bus stop outside of those villages or close to those villages. So, because that's what we found the problem was with Cavity Road. People are in Sevenoaks, people who are coming out of Sevenoaks, they want to cross the road to get onto the bus, and it can be quite dodgy. I reckon I'm reasonably fit and both physically and mentally for my age, but I have problems crossing Cavity Road at times.
Kevin,
And it's the same
I'm
down
going to
there.
have to wind you up. Sorry, just the time. But look, what I'll do is perhaps we can arrange to have a cuppa next week. You can give me a full rundown on that at that situation, and I can follow that up directly with officers if you like. And perhaps Kathy, you might like to come along to that as well. That way we can focus on that particular issue and actually follow it through there as well, if you're okay with that. Fantastic. I think everyone's good. No, that's great. Great to see things are moving along. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now, look, next we do have the Capital Health Advisory Group, but hang on a sec, Jackie. I'm just going to ask Jackie to pop in there. She's got to pop off to work shortly, and she's just got an issue that she'd like to just quickly put to the table. Yep, you're good.
Go green. Okay, hi. Thank you, Martin, for letting me speak this morning, and I do apologise for having to leave after this. I'll be tabling my notes through the help of Anna to the minute of their meeting. The issue I want to speak to you about today is the illegal driving gatherings in Otaki, specifically the effects of the one on the 2nd of June. This has been a really frightening event that I need to just outline and maybe give you the picture of what it's like and been like and is like to be in this war zone that our town now is. We had over 200 cars. That was the low estimate. Each of 4 people, over 800 people, arrived at our town, and the police knew about it about a month beforehand thanks to social media. They were coming into Levin, but from there their plans were open, and they basically caused a lot of civil unrest for the next 9 hours after through the night of Saturday the 2nd of June. I really apologise if I seem really nervous and shaken up right now. I have no nerves left. It's been 3 weeks from this event. And I'm one of the many people in Otaki who doesn't sleep before 3 a.m. on a Saturday night now. Our nerve levels start rising on Wednesday as we get more and more towards the weekend, and have done every week for the last 3 weeks. We have residents living alone in their homes, elderly people who either have to get picked up and taken out of Otaki to stay for the weekend elsewhere, somewhere else in the district, or have to have their neighbours or some family or whānau, nieces, nephews, grandchildren come and sleep in their houses with them. We've had vehicles coming back every Saturday night en masse to see if there's just another event they can hook up into in the convoys. And unfortunately, these events are being organised by adults. Please never ever use the word boy racer. These are fully legally culpable adults intent on using their mass to cause civil unrest and break the law. They are encouraging the youth in their vehicles they're coercing them into joining the convoys to make up the numbers, and these youth are all being put at risk. I've had a video I've seen since that event of a car doing burnouts going round and round and round in Otaki. We could probably all hear them from our houses, with a young college kid sitting on each windowsill holding onto the roof, under the roof. As it was spinning, it did about 12 spins. They were all laughing, but everyone laughs until someone's eye gets poked out, you know. The word fun has been used less and less and less on media describing these events. So on that night, the civil unrest included. They blocked and closed these people blocked and closed State Highway 1 in 4 places multiple times over 9 hours. There's video of them hitting onlookers. He flew through the air, hit the ground, and they did not call an ambulance. They climbed onto commercial buildings here in Levin and private homes. That resident had people on their roof for 2 hours in Otaki, stomping, banging things, throwing missiles, letting off fireworks on their roof. They called 111 so many times, the police did not attend. They could not get into the street. They were changing their tyres all over the front yard and the driveway up to their garage. I haven't talked to those people myself, but community board members and CAM and staff have. We talked to the mayor. I let her know on that weekend what was going on. She was away. It was a long weekend. I asked her if she could support Brendan Wandin, the mayor of Levin's public statements on the Monday. She didn't. I talked and thought about what council could do. The mayor and the CN specifically have powers of declaring a local emergency, and I wrote to them and asked the mayor and CE to consider declaring, in conjunction with Mayor Bertie Wandin, a state of local emergency for the next event, because there will be a next event. In fact, we can know just about how many days away it is. I've not ever had a response to that request to the mayor and CE I made 2 weeks ago. I've asked them to propose a remit to the LGNZ AGM with the 6 signatories from other councils, giving the government the provisional support from councils across New Zealand for legislation changes to give police more powers over these gatherings and powers to seize vehicles. The deadline for that remits to LGNZ is tomorrow. I've had no response from the mayor and CE. We will be working hard and working with our GM and the community board to get council infrastructure services to see what they can do. They've cleaned up the road surface. They've been talking to the infrastructure and the roading team. They're considering some options, but our community board have been trying to get the roading team to consider options for Murray Street since before Christmas, and specifically put it on our matters under interest, under action list, along with 5 other matters that council can help with on the 16th of April. And our email from Sean Mellon last night said, yep, we will definitely get the roading team to look into this. But it's just getting worse and worse. And the organisers of the 2nd of June, Luke, has been on national TV threatening police and the public and saying they are coming back. The only statement we've had from the mayor last Friday was publicly made, issued by Council Comms, and her advice was to stay home and stay safe. Effectively, she's declaring a curfew on Otaki on residents, while police let these adults run riot without facing any consequences because the police have no choice and not enough resources. The second biggest issue in the next event is going to be the amount of Otaki residents who are going to stay dressed and get up and get out in the streets and confront these people, because that is clearly what people are saying they're going to do. They're running out of options. The police reinforcements from the Wellington Command Unit have been contacted about an event meeting later on here today in this building. They are sending up reinforcements to the Kapiti Mana Police to help protect council. They refused to send reinforcements to assist with the event on the 2nd of June in Otaki when asked by and pleaded by the Central District's police. So I just wanted you to see that picture.
Okay.
And
That's great,
thank you for
Jackie.
your
And look,
time.
it's not that I'm not
No, I
listening
know
to you
you're
at the moment.
busy.
No, I'm just jotting something down here. In the first instance, Nigel?
Thanks, Jack. I talking to Bernie Wandon. Bernie's Bernie's of the view that all of these people they don't come from Horowhenua, right? So, and I'm not sure that Kapiti people don't think that they don't come from Kapiti. So where do they come from? Has anybody done any homework on that? Do you know?
Plenty of homework's been done on that. Yeah, they came on that event. The Levin invasion, as advertised, was for people from as far away as Hawke's Bay and Taupo, and they're coming from the heart of the Wairarapa, Wellington Central, of course.
Yeah, I take Jackie's point on this. This has happened. If you live long enough, you find out that stuff happens in a cyclic way. This sort of stuff has happened before. I think Jackie raises a really good point that what tends to happen in these situations is that they escalate. And they get to the point where residents go, we're not being supported by police, or we're not being supported by the council, we're not being supported. So they go, well, to hell with it, we'll get our own pitchforks out and go and deal with it ourselves. And that's a potential danger here. And then once that happens, man, then it's a very, very slippery slope very quickly. So but, I take the point. I'm not sure, Brenda might know, whether we as a council have talked to Horowhenua, because we should. I mean, that is something that affects both. So I think it'd be really handy to have that conversation, that we should be talking to each other, because people are just travelling through one area to the other, right? So, so I'm not sure where that's at, but that's another question mark. But thanks for highlighting this. I think it's good.
Johnny? Oh, sorry, Rob.
Oh, thanks, and thanks, Jackie. Yes, I'd just like to emphasise that the majority of these boy racers, or whatever they are, senior racers, are from out of the area. But I have spent a lot of my time talking and just offering support to 3 ram raid business owners recently, and it's really got to stop. Our farm, just last couple of months ago, the front fence was taken out and the gate was smashed up, and the lamppost by someone who spun out doing the donuts just opposite the racecourse there. Cows just about disappeared overnight. Someone put a sort of bit of plastic around the gate post. The Otaki International Airport just had its front fence taken out with a car rolling out of control on a straight line. And,
My apologies, Rob.
okay, I'll cut it short. But the thing is that they're from out of, majority of them.
What I'm going to be flagging is that, Jackie, we're going to do up a resolution with regards to follow through on this. But we're not going to do it this minute, that sort of stuff. I appreciate Ron's got to get away, and I want to get into the KHAC stuff. But before this meeting ends, we'll put together a resolution with regards to following through on this, and asking for a report back from council in regards to that as well, and push it from our end as well. The motion will be around supporting the Otaki Community Board and the kaupapa that they're doing with regards to this, rather than trying to do something new. I'm aware that council officers are stepping into this, but that just gives us a pathway to actually maybe push a little bit harder.
So just moving forward, can we propose a resolution now to...
Look, I've just flagged that we will do one. I want to get the Kapiti Health Advisory Group. I don't want to spend 10 minutes doing that. We'll do that at the end of the meeting. Okay?
Yeah.
So I just get...
Just respond and say thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, everyone.
Cool. Johnny, what you're talking to, can that wait till then as well, or...? Yep.
Just, I guess I've got a question. So, you said that we were aware of this, or the police were actually aware of this event in the first instance, and we're aware of another one in the future coming up. So they've got the intelligence, or they had the intelligence.
Yep.
So they didn't have enough police, and I don't believe that they haven't got enough resources.
It's the focusing of those resources, and perhaps we need to push a bit harder to helping that
Well,
focus.
I think, look, crikey, from personal experience, I know they've got the resources. And maybe there's some redress through the Independent Police Complaints Authority for not actually doing their job properly.
Could well be. That's a very good point. Thanks, Johnny. Okay, thank you very much for that, Jackie. Sorry to give you the hurry up there, but that's quite an important issue, and it's one that I think it needs to be addressed. Otherwise, we're going to start seeing ambulances turning up.
Mr. Chair, can I speak on behalf of the Mayor? She's obviously sent her apologies for this.
Yes.
But so I know that the Mayor is working behind the scenes with the Mayor of Horowhenua to do what they can. Yes, there's only been one public statement, as Jackie has mentioned, but there is work going on behind the scenes to ensure that we're doing what we can to more than just say to people to stay home and keep safe.
I appreciate that.
Releasing resources as we can from New Zealand Police into that space.
That's great to know. Maybe we can incorporate that. I do think it's important we do put a resolution together. This is an issue that the community board's brought to us. It's a valid issue, an important issue, and I'd like to capture that as well.
Sorry, can I just one last word on this? Is that what tends to happen with these things is the approach tends to be the punitive approach. Sometimes what works really well, assuming you've got the right people in the room, is that you invite a meeting with the people who are doing this, who are doing the organising. You actually sit down with them. What people tend to do is have barriers, right? But if you sit down with them and that might get you nowhere, but it might get you a long way as well.
Oh, look, we can incorporate that as well. No problems at all. Lovely. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, so on to the update from... Maybe I've got the update from the 8.1, update on the health strategy. I'm actually more wanting the update on the Capital Health Advisory Group. Come on up. Fundamentally, we're talking in this space for the rest of the meeting anyway, so we can take a little bit of direction on which part we want to address first. We've got an update of the health strategy. That doesn't have to be first. An update on the Capital Health Advisory Work Program. I'm picking that might be where we start with regards to the touch base by the regional group as such in the first instance, if that's okay. The public health group. Yeah, just simply so that Ron can get in before he has to head off.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you. I'd like to introduce Ron Tustin, who has recently joined us as a member of our Public Health Working Group, and he's going to report on their activities. So, Ron.
Yeah, and just letting the committee know that, again, part of the report back from the Capital Health Advisory Group is we have 5 working groups there. Each working group is reporting back to us at the moment, and then that'll be a ongoing cycle for the rest of the triennium. This is the first time we've had this group in here, I think, so looking forward to hearing from them. Please, you have the floor.
I'm the convener of the Population Health Working Group, and we'd like to thank you, this committee, for giving us the opportunity of talking to you about our work program. We're, as the chair has said, we're one of 5 working groups, and you've heard already from 2 of them, and we're number 3. The first thing I need to tell you is that we have changed our name from when we was first set up in mid last year. We were then called the Public Health Working Group, public health being a term that is very widely used to describe health issues for the whole populations. Since then, there's been some confusion between public health as applied to what we were set up to do, and population health, because there's some confusion that people thought we were referring to publicly funded health systems. So The first point to make is that we are now officially called the Population Health Working Group. And our job is to work with you and to advise you on issues which affect the whole of the community. The second thing is the purpose of today's meeting is to describe to you some of the elements of our program, and we would very much like to get from you what you think about the program itself, but also your views on what the big issues will be over the next, let's say, 5 years, but with particular reference to what we actually do to make some concrete progress over the next 12 months. The members of our group, I've had some experience in public health prior to this in our district. I convened both the water supply community group and then later the community group on water meters. So I have a particular interest in the purity of our water and the management of water in our district. Ron, I think you know, some of you know him, Ron Tustin, who lives in Paraparaumu Beach. I come from Pakakariki, so we have a southern representative. Ron is from Paraparaumu Beach, is a public health professional and is running his own consultancy and has particular responsibilities in the area of alcohol and is a member of the Kapiti District Licensing Committee. We're fortunate to have Barry Borman, who was Professor Barry Borman is an epidemiologist from Massey University. Unfortunately, he's not able to be, he's only able to provide us with his advice on Fridays because the rest of the time he has to be with the Massey staff in their campus in Wellington. And the fourth member of the group is Iridie McCloy from Waikanai, and of course most of you know her. And she's been interested and involved in health matters in our district for 30 or 40 years. We are looking at whether or not we are sufficiently representative, and we're talking to one or two people at the moment as to whether we can expand. We're conscious of the fact that we need much better connection with Maori. We don't have the connection yet with Otaki, although I lived in Otaki myself for 20 years. But so the question of representation on the committee is still open, and we want to make sure that we have the expertise and the geographical representation which would enable us to speak for the whole of the district. What I would like to do now is to take you through our 8-point program. But since Ron has to be away in a quarter of an hour, we'll break into that, and I'll ask him to present. He was going to talk to us about a couple of issues. One is a discussion paper, which is one of the most important products that we've developed so far, and Ron drafted that paper. And secondly, he was going to talk about our interest in alcohol. So, Ron, I'll pass it over to you.
Greetings, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here. The sort of classic public health parable, if you like, is you see someone caught in a river's current, and you obviously get out and save them, only to be drawn to the rescue of a whole lot more people drowning as they come down in the current. And after many have been rescued, you scratch your head and think, there's a better way. And you walk upstream to investigate why so many people are drowning in this current. And that's where we get that whole concept, if you like, of working upstream. And that's what the focus of our group is. It is the role of our group. So the health strategy, which I'm sure you've debated quite a bit as well, it talks a lot, quite rightly, about that tension to respond to emergencies, to provide treatment help and other sort of help for people who need it, and some of the issues around that which are being grappled with. And we're very much wedded to those ideas too. But our focus, our mandate is really around prevention and promotion. So stopping people falling into the river, what can you do upstream? And having just heard that really moving presentation about the civil unrest that's been experienced in places like Laverne and Otaki, one of the important questions I think for us all to address is, what are the upstream things we could do, we could have done? These things don't happen just suddenly, okay? So in that environment that we find ourselves in, it's right to have a focus on people getting the treatment they need, but also this upstream approach to health, one that addresses people's access to what are often termed, and in the strategy, the determinants of health. By that, we're talking about income levels and education and housing, education opportunities, the environment, basic amenities, and healthcare access. All very much, a lot of those things are in your own watch house already, I'm sure. And also the focus on the prevention of so-called lifestyle diseases. And the same tune, I guess, in terms of meeting the Local Government Act objective of well-being, promoting well-being. Now that, of course, is an enormously wide brief for these 4 people to deal with. It's like, you know, being presented with this huge meal and you're on a diet. So the Population Health Working Group was confronted with the enormity of that task when it was set up, and we responded with this paper that Don talked about, and how we should set priorities so as to be of the greatest benefit to you in going forward. And those priorities were based on these sorts of criteria. What's the magnitude of the problem? Is it perceived similarly or differently in Kapiti than the rest of the country, for example? How severe is it in terms of when analysing what sort of injuries, illness, disease, and mortality? Does it actually matter a lot to the residents? Meaning, basically, is the community ready to do something about it? Is it ready to take some sort of action? And is it willing to act in some way? And what are the things that will be the greatest impact? And obviously, when you've tossed up ideas like where are the resources, and we've heard already about some of the issues around resources in other agencies, which is very pertinent to our work too. What is the evidence and what is actually acceptable to do? Will others help with it? Another one of the criteria. What are other agencies doing? What is in their work program? So we're actually working with trying to get more common understanding with the public health units and other agencies like the Cancer Society, the Heart Foundation and others as well. And how does it fit with council priorities? And at the same time, there are lots of new challenges at the national level, what I think Don will be talking about shortly, and trying to get more clarification about where things are going. So, however, based on these criteria, after discussion with the Kapiti Health Advisory Group and looking at that parallel development of the health strategy, the focus for the health issues for us were on 3 particular health issues. The tobacco and vaping, we've lumped together as one issue, which has changed enormously. The national scene has changed enormously in recent time. Issues around food and issues around alcohol. And in all those areas, there are policies which council has. So council's very much in this game. And then it also has other responsibilities in those areas, as I said, but we also will talk shortly about water-related issues and climate responses as 2 other areas and how we work in those areas. So that menu is very large, but how we may be involved in the different areas, I think, will vary. So it may be about advocacy and helping with writing submissions in some areas. In others, it will be about connecting, making connections between some of the organisations we may be working with already in our group and with your organisations, and agencies you're working with. And by building up that common understanding, we create a lot of change. And others, it may be about being an active partner in some of the roles, some of the things we're doing. And we've already had some of those discussions about how we can add on, how we can link with community around that. But maybe just to give you a brief insight into how we want to work, how we think the population health group should work. Just a brief insight into one of them around alcohol. And alcohol is pretty topical at the moment. And I think even if anyone was watching the TV1 news this morning, the top of the news was about the actual cost to the nation, which is a study that's been done by the New Zealand Institute of Economic Research, which showed that the cost of the nation is $9 billion now. A lot of that is related to things like fetal alcohol syndrome, where young people born with the syndrome, or some part of it, it's actually called the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So there's a whole range of problems around that, okay? So it's enormous. And then the human costs, there's been a study done which needs more precise work, but it's been ascertained that in the emergency department presentations from Kapiti over the last 5 years, on average, there were 1,200 of those were alcohol related. Now, we're not necessarily talking about alcohol harm in relation to physical harm. It could be related to alcohol's involvement in particular disorders and particular diseases. Okay, so that's an important consideration, and that report has already said that Kapiti residents have a moderately high risk of being hospitalised from alcohol-related conditions compared to other territorial authorities. So gathering that information becomes an important role. And then there's issues about the wastewater study, which Don will talk about at some stage soon. So that's the problem. What's the opportunity to do something? And there's two important areas as we see it. One is the development of the local alcohol policy, which I believe it's gone to a certain way, and then it's going to be kicking in again later. And there's a new process now in law because a lot of local authorities have been very scared off by the problems they've had with it in terms of the appeals they've had to bear and the cost of those appeals. I think in Auckland it was something like $1 million. So that's one of the reasons why an act came into pass, the Community Participation Amendment Act, which began to address that. So no longer are these subject to appeals. About 2/3, I think, of local authorities have now developed a LAP, a local alcohol policy. And this act also has quite a few other opportunities in it. It's come into force from the end of last month. The actual process for the licensing committees has changed enormously. There's no longer any cross-examination. It's inquisitorial. It's certainly not adversarial, and it's about being more user-friendly to encourage more people, because what the research showed that members of the public who were presenting at these hearings, they were feeling intimidated, certainly when they got cross-examined by the lawyers of the applicants at times. And some, certainly from Morley, they were saying they felt it was very unsafe. And on that issue, one of the areas where what the new Act talks about also is about tikanga, the importance of tikanga and applying tikanga within hearings where it's appropriate. Objectors can now be any persons. It's not anyone who's interested. It can be anyone at all. And it impacts on how do we see, how do we actually encourage people or foster the idea that the public can have some sort of control over alcohol outlets and where they live. So it is quite big. So certainly being significantly more proactive. So that, in a way, is opportunity. There's a golden opportunity in this particular health issue just as the approach we would take in tobacco and in food would be similar, okay? So consequently, in alcohol, those three tools of the LAP that represents community interest as well, a sound understanding and application of the new Act, and good connections with police and health under the umbrella of the health strategy seems to be a great way forward.
Thanks, Ron. Chair, I was going to present our 8-point program, of which Ron has described one, the alcohol one, but also his analytical framework. But because he has to go, would you like to take some, if members have questions to Ron before he has to take off?
Nigel.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that, Ron. Yes, I've read through the changes to the Act. I think it presents fantastic opportunities. I know I haven't had a subsequent conversation, but Steve McDowell has been has long thought that LAP's a bad idea. So I'll be really interested to catch up with him and see if he's thinks that they're a better idea now. And one of the reasons they were considered to be a bad idea was because of how challengeable LAPs can be and that they can hamstring DLCs. So I'll follow up with that conversation. Also, our DLC had some conversations with Porirua, what's happening in Porirua. And you're right, and I thought it was that you would have read the New Zealand Commissioner of Police who came out a couple of weeks ago. At that stage, his estimate was 8 billion, but yeah, 9 billion seems a lot there. And that it's a huge problem. So, yep. I just quickly touch on mental health in terms of looking at upstream. You will be aware that Kapiti had one half-time psychiatrist for the whole of the Kapiti Coast, and she left town. She's gone to suffer a winter in Queenstown, which must be difficult. So we have nobody, like literally nobody. And you only have to attend a council meeting to realise that there's a need for mental health services in Kapiti. So in terms of where you go with that, in terms of that advocacy for that particular area, is that part of the brief? Sorry, it's a long question and a bit of a statement in there as well.
I think Sandra might be in a better position to answer that question because we did discuss that at the last advisory group meeting.
Ron and Don, it's good.
Actually, we have another working group looking at mental health, and Graham Scott Dr. Graham Scott's convening that group, and I think you're going to hear from him next week. So he's better placed, I think, to answer your question. But yes, we're certainly the KHAG itself is certainly seized of the importance of mental health in our district. No question.
Sorry, if I might just note that on the 9th of May, at your last committee meeting, I think Sandra did a lovely presentation and talked about the sub-working groups of the Kapiti Health Advisory Committee. So just to remind you, there's access to services, mental health, which I think you're leaning into, public health, which is now population health, which Don and Ron are chatting about today, children and young people, and transport were some areas where there was some focus. And they've been starting to unpick and share the work that's underway. So each time we come to you, I think someone different is presenting on work that's underway.
And as Chris has said, they are presenting next time, and I know that they're looking forward to coming in and talking to you about their work, but certainly it's something they're looking at. And they were concerned about losing Dr. Maria. She was such a super person, yeah.
So would you like me to continue, Chair?
Sorry, Kathy?
Oh, sorry.
And just quickly, because I know you've got to go, Ron, I've been dying to say this for a long time. Just on the alcohol, and I'm speaking from personal experience, council has just put up the fees for alcohol, but it doesn't matter what alcohol costs. Anybody who wants alcohol will actually go and buy it, and then the family suffers, like children suffer, because they've spent the money on the alcohol and not on the children miss out. So I'm just wondering, rather than putting the fees up all the time, have you got any, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but other than putting fees up, how do you prevent people from drinking? Because if they want to drink, they'll drink, and they'll go and buy it wherever they want to buy it.
I don't think the issue is about stopping people drinking. It's about stopping people drinking to harm. And one of the studies recently showed that 19% of Pākehās drink at hazardous levels, but 33% of Māori drink at hazardous levels. So it's about, I mean, there is a sort of perception in a way that drinking is about dealing with alcoholics, dealing with people who are, who need the sort of help the mental health services provide, for example. They need that sort of, that's part of the picture. But the greatest harm is actually caused by people who may occasionally drink to harm, So it may be about a practice in a premise, but it may be about the fact of people doing what they call things like freeloading or side loading at home. That's the real issue, I think. So I think when you look at price, for example, it does have the international research has an impact. It's one of the things to do. So I don't know, in terms of what you're saying, how prevalent that is. I mean, I just accept it is, I guess.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, that's gone for the part, so.
Thank you, Ron. Sorry to have held up the things to, hopefully didn't feel like you were squeezing it in there, but I really appreciated the presentation. Don, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what I wanted to do is briefly take you through the 8 points of our current program, and Ron has already, as you know, covered one, the alcohol one. The first one is government health policy, and the likely population health intentions at the national level. We've been involved in CAHAG and looking at the whole question of the future of the health system, and with particular reference to the establishment of localities, which you're well aware of. And we anticipated that Kapiti would be one of these 60 to 80 localities. Well, that's now still up in the air. On the one hand, the government has said that, and the minister has said that in future they will diminish the importance of Wellington and increase the importance of people out in the community. At the same time, they've put localities, the whole concept of localities, on the back burner until 2029. I have no idea why they've chosen 2029. But so there's some doubt now as to exactly how they will go about increasing the participation in the national health system of districts like ours. And until we can hear from the government exactly what they have in mind, and we understand that there will be a major policy statement in the middle of next month, we're a bit hamstrung as to, until we find out what the national intentions are in the area of population health, it is difficult for us to be too specific about what priorities will be applicable to our district. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the outstanding paper that the staff here have produced on the direction of travel and the health strategy which you as councillors are now looking at. That will be a huge step forward for the district. And you'll already be aware just how important population health issues will be as part of the program going forward on how to implement this strategy. The direction of travel already lists 11 acts of Parliament which impose legal obligations on the council to have both policies and implementation in a whole range of areas, and we've just covered one in the whole question of alcohol. So once the council has decided on the broad strategies that it wants to adopt as part of its social wellbeing responsibility, we will then want to work with the council, both with you and with the staff, on what will be the best way to implement the strategy. So we would anticipate that our working group will contribute to the discussion on the work program, which will be decided in the context of the strategy. The third area stems from a discussion that KHAG had with Health Coalition Aotearoa, excuse me, which is one of the major NGOs working out of Auckland University, chaired by Professor Boyd Swinburne. And Martin was part of that discussion we had with him. As Ron has described to you, the Health Coalition Aotearoa concentration tends to be on alcohol and unhealthy food. I forgot what the third one was. Anyway, it's part of being old, you forget. Tobacco, that's right. Thank you. The question is, as a result of that discussion, we had a Zoom meeting with him, which was very valuable, and both Martin and Kathy were present. And that led to Martin proposing that we should have a regional approach. The Health Coalition Aotearoa tends to be interested in national policies, but I think Martin could see that if we were going to make any progress, we actually need to bring it down closer to home. So Martin's made the proposal that we should talk to our other partners within the region, and our view on that is that we first of all need to decide what the priorities are for our own district. And then we would like to, having done that, we would like to identify some of the workers in the other regional councils and talk to them about what they regard as the priorities for their parts of the district, and see if we can amalgamate those into some kind of overall approach, which we can then come back to you with some advice on what kind of a regional program might be adopted. So the fourth thing is to do with, as Ron said, with water, and which we anticipate was going to be one of the major responsibilities of council over the next 12 months in terms of dealing with the future management. The government's already introduced or has a bill which has just been tabled, the Local Government Water Services Preliminary Arrangements Bill, which is a very complex piece of legislation, and it's going to take a great deal of concentration and work to work our way through it, and will be one of the council's principal concerns over the next 12 months as to how the three water concept, which was the previous government's approach, has now been abandoned, and the responsibility for water is now squarely back with us. So the question is how we're going to handle it. And it's going to be, of course, the council has already had to face up to the issue of funding, and you've already made a decision that our rates are going to have to be increased to deal with the whole question of water. So I would think that how we manage water in this district is going to be a principal preoccupation over the next 12 months. Within that, that leads to the fifth point, and there are some specific water issues that we would like to look at. We were particularly impressed with some work being done in Auckland University in testing wastewater and they were looking at the way in which alcohol consumption can be measured through the wastewater analysis. Even more important for us probably is COVID and the future of pandemics. The experts tell us that we can anticipate that there will be future pandemics, and that bodies like ours, which you represent, are going to have to think about how to handle that. So the way in which we can actually prepare for that, one of the ways is water analysis. Iridi is particularly interested in this area because she's been interested in for many years as to how we test our water and what elements we've isolated in it. My impression is that we have some way to go to have a program of water testing agreed and made public, which I'm sure that you will agree will be a part of that process. The sixth point was alcohol, and we've already dealt with that. On the question of tobacco and vaping, that is clearly an issue for our district, as it is for all districts. You will recall that the Mayor wrote a letter to the Minister about expressing our concern and regret that the groundbreaking legislation on tobacco had been abandoned. But the guarantee the government has given us that there will be a replacement legislation in the area of tobacco and vaping. And we anticipate that the council will want to follow up the Mayor's letter and will probably want to make a submission. But until we see the colour of the bill on tobacco, we won't be able to contribute to that submission making, but that will be on our program for the year. And finally, a rather longer term arises from Professor Barry Borman's work with Massey University. His group is looking at such concepts as sustainable value and social vulnerabilities, and they are developing some tools to deal with the whole question in which districts throughout the country, what their composition of the district is, what the pressure points are, and the data that's necessary to allow analysis for the longer term to enable us to deal with emergencies, both emergencies such as happened in Havelock North over water, the terrible damage that flooding's done in other parts of the country in the last 12 months. That's on the one hand, but there are issues which are going to arise for us in the area of climate change, and of course you've got the Bulger Committee already advising you on what might be done to deal with that. Clearly there is a lot of concern in our community about the effect of climate change, for example, on property rights, and that's been something which has been a difficulty for the council to handle for some years now. The question, it may be that to enable a wider discussion to take place in a community context, that we take it beyond the whole question of property rights, which will obviously remain important, but to convince the community that we do have some huge generational issues here and that we do have to face up to them. And one way of doing that may be through looking at the way in which we manage emergencies and the health issues that arise from that, and get away from actually talking about managed retreat and the cost of moving houses and of changing the whole question of property rights, taking a different approach to it so that eventually our people can be persuaded that we do have to face up as a community to a future in which climate change is going to make a huge difference to our environment. So, Chair, those are the 8 areas in which we have thought we would have a look at, and we will be applying the analytical framework that Ron has described to you as to And it's pretty clear that, as I've discussed over the whole question of water, that there will be some issues which will impose themselves on us, and we won't have a choice. Whereas there are others, that, for example, unhealthy food, where we may, in fact, not be quite so directly involved over the next period ahead. But what we do want to do is to be able to present to you one or two practical projects that we can embark on over the next 12 months to actually demonstrate to our community that we are taking on board what they think is important and we're doing something about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Don. I'm again reminded of the luxury that we have as a community, of the experience that we have here as well, and the depth of that experience, which is only going to benefit our community. And just thank you for all the work that you and your team are doing, and looking forward to supporting that in the ways that we can. The 8 points have you got? Is that in a briefing note or anything along that sort of line, or?
Don usually provides an update for our meeting. I'll ask him to do one of those for our July meeting to encapsulate that in a short.
Yeah, and then we could circulate that to
And we'll
the
circulate it.
committee
Yeah.
members. I think would be very, very useful to just have that in front of us as well. Does anyone have any questions at all? Nigel.
Just a quick statement, really. Thank you. This is really brilliant work. I think it's fantastic, and yeah, the opportunity to get some runs on the board with some of this stuff. The health will be an issue this afternoon at about 1 o'clock. But taking the point that you raised there about the approach that we take, that broader approach that we take, I think that's fantastic. And I'd just reiterate what Martin said. We are incredibly fortunate on the Kapiti Coast to have people with just such a high level of skill who make themselves available. So, brilliant.
Thank you. It's very encouraging.
Now, just if you'd like to stay at the table, if you like, and Don, because Sandra, did you want to do an up? Oh, sorry, did I miss someone?
That's all right. I was just going to say thank you.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to run very quickly through our 5 working groups, or 4, the other 4 anyway, and let you know what they're doing. Our Access to Services group, as you know, the compelling case for a polyclinic or an integrated health clinic in Kapiti is their top priority. Unfortunately, the person who's writing our paper is currently in Paris, where he insists on sending lovely emails from. But nothing to do with, no. But we expect him back in the next couple of weeks, and we hope to have a first draft ready to start talking to people by the end of July. We coincidentally have an appointment to talk with Tim Costley, our local MP, in early August. So we're hoping we'll have something at least to start putting out there. But obviously, coming to you will be our first priority. That group's got a few other bits and pieces they're looking at as well. Our mental health group will be talking to you next meeting for you, and Graham Scott, who I'm sure you all know, and Claire Hind, who's the chair of Dementia New Zealand, have both got a great program of work that they're looking at there, and have been talking to some key groups, including people like Kapiti Youth Services and the Stats Department. So there's quite a lot coming there. The Children and Young People's Group is working quite hard to get a feeling for just what are the issues for children and young people here. We're very lucky that in terms of young people, we have Ollie Sterling, who is on the Youth Council, contributing to their work. But they're also looking at groups like Birthright, Plunkett, the schools, just to get an idea of what are the particular needs and what is actually happening for children and young people in Kapiti, and where can we start to make a difference. And last but definitely not least is the transport issue. I think when Diana spoke to you last time, she mentioned that she was advertising for more drivers for Kapiti carers. That was spectacularly unsuccessful, and they are now facing a really difficult situation where they're providing a lot of transport for people who have no other means of getting into Wellington to hospitals and to the hut. And many of their drivers are well into their 80s and really, if I was in Diana's position, I would be incredibly concerned about the liabilities that come with organising what she's organising. So we are going as a community to have to look really hard soon at how do we get people to hospital. Last meeting of the health network, which is the professional providers, we had some data presented on Kapiti presentations, and something like 7,000 people presented at Wellington Hospital last year from Kapiti. That's a huge number of people having to get there. Approximately half of them were taken there by ambulance or the police or similar agencies. But overall, nearly 50% of them were admitted. So these aren't people who are just popping off there because it's cheaper than going to their GP. These are people who are really sick and having to one way or another get to Wellington. We are going to make a submission to the regional council, but it sounds as if we need to talk to the Older People's Council and work with them on that as well, because there could be some useful work together. But that is a very big concern. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I'm just going to enter to those comments just to say I think this is where council can support the work that's happening in those respective advisory groups. And Gina was mentioning that, I will say VJ's name, VJ, and our transport team has already been engaging with GW to raise some of the issues that have already been coming through. And as I mentioned, we are going to lift it up to an executive team level to see whether we can't get some agreement to address some of these quite pertinent issues. And because we are working alongside you all, I will say that we have had a conversation with Te Whatu Ora just to bring to life the issue of transport. For example, we had someone who paid $300 through driving Miss Daisy, to get to Wellington Hospital one way, which is outrageous. I'm sure you'll agree. And Te Whatu Ora hadn't quite understood that the issue was of that significance. So I think being able to table some examples and things like that is really critical. But I think it would be good for us to come back on the point of transport and be able to touch base with all of the good work that's underway to make sure it is lined up.
$300 is not at all unusual, and for a lot of people that's just beyond their means, so they are truly stuck. But that's great. I mean, that's the beauty of what we're all doing here, isn't it? That we can provide a community input, and you can provide the executive team and support, which is great.
Thanks for that, Sandra. My end, just feels good that we've been able to get to where we are now, and great to see that the different teams are off doing what I knew they could always get on and do, but doing it in a way that's meaningful for the community as well, and meaningful for the time that the people are putting in to this kaupapa as well, because you put time in, but you want to see the results coming out. So great to see the trajectory that we're on. Kathy.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the health group and putting pressure on Te Whatu Ora to keep the after hours going at Kenepuru Hospital as well. I don't know when we'll get an update from that, but I just want to say, yeah, and because you've got your eye on the ball the whole time of what's happening around us, which is really, really good, and on to the issues as they're happening or before they happen. So I do hope we keep the after hours at Kenepuru, because with all those admissions from Kapiti into Wellington, imagine Pururua compounding that issue. So, but I just want to say thank you, and thank you, John. And I don't know how you kept all that information in your head without reading your notes. It's so good. So yes, I just thank you.
That's awesome.
I won't tell you what's the rest in my head, Kathy.
So look, I'll ask you if you'd like to stay at the table, because we've got council officers that are just going to report back in this space as well. So perhaps I'm handing the floor over to you, Gina, or Chris, with regards to an update on the health strategy, an update on the, well, we've got the work program, as such, and it looks like there's a report here as well with regards to the budget. Sorry, Nigel, did you have something? My apologies, Nigel.
Yeah,
I missed
no,
you
that's cool. Just had a question, or an observation that the extraordinary number underscores the value of the contribution that we made to the ambulance service as well. The term criminal negligence has been used in regard to government policy about not funding cancer drugs. What I'm wondering about is how political does the group get in terms of saying publicly, this is outrageous, assuming you think it's outrageous. Yeah, and I've raised this before, because you are in this really, you're on the ground at the coalface kind of thing. So you will be seeing people who will be suffering directly as a consequence of a central government policy or neglect. And so do you feel it incumbent at all to say something, or do you feel like you are in any way constrained from saying something? That's just the question for me.
Yeah, it's obviously a very important consideration. We don't want to get involved in the politics of health. We don't see that as but we don't deny that the politics of health is something the council itself has to think about. Well, I think we reached a sort of balance over the letter that the mayor sent to the minister. We put up some ideas, and Gina and the team here took that on board, and so I think the letter itself was both a combination of concerns about the repeal of the tobacco legislation, but also she expressed some of her, I think, concerns which would be regarded as political, so which is quite legitimate, obviously, for the mayor. So I think it's at your level that those issues as to how the community feels about them have to be dealt with. We will listen to the community as part of the framework that Ron described to you. We've got to know what the community think. And we were talking to Gina the other day. We understand that part of the reaction to the consultation over the strategy, for example, there is some feeling out of the community that why is the council getting involved in health at all? We've got a whole lot of other things we should spend the money on. Well, that's a legitimate consideration, and you're going to have to deal with it. But I think it can be dealt with in the sense that the council has legal responsibilities for social well-being, and that through the public health, we've got specific responsibilities that it has, particularly in the area of water, but there are in other areas as well. So I think it's a question really of trying to convince the community that that health is a legitimate concern for the council, because it enables the council's management of the whole district to be in a better place than it would be otherwise. If we're constantly facing up to that very disturbing situation that was described to us earlier about Altaki, it means it's going to get in the way of a whole lot of other things that the council needs to do for us as district residents. So I think it's possible to persuade people that health is a legitimate concern, but it's going to take some work, and it's going to take some persuasion from the leadership here in around the council table.
Very well put. Sandra, did you want to comment?
I think as we all head in towards advocacy fairly soon for things like our new polyclinic, inevitably it's going to draw some political ire. So we're going to, I think we just have to accept that that's going to be part and parcel of what we're going to be doing.
I think it's fair to say, Nigel, that as these things start lining up, we'll be at the pointy end of the stick with regards to that advocacy as well. Chris?
about to shift into the next
Yep, shift
conversation,
into
if you're
the next one,
okay.
absolutely fine.
I did just want to note, though, that obviously we had taken the paper that was associated with KHAG's update as read, and in the back of that was your normal update on their work program. So all of the work program items were in there, and if you want to refer that to that, you can. And I had just mentioned to Sandra that we will put the 8 areas that Don and Ron had worked through in there in our next one, so that you'll see that coming through, and they'll lean into things as right and appropriate. So it is documented. I just wanted to make sure we said that out loud. But we are moving into an update on the health strategy, and I just did want to lean into that last comment before I hand over to Gina, who can tell you about what we've been up to. I think the interest in health, and perhaps even topics like housing and council's role in that, I think is becoming more crystallised as we work with others. So I just wanted to share with you, it is noted in the paper that we've tabled that we will and be having discussions with iwi Māori Partnership Board chairs and some operational leads at Te Whatu Ora. We have been busy doing that, and one of the reflections I just wanted to land with you was when we met the iwi Partnership Board Chair Hikatea Raupata just recently, we had a discussion about the crucial role that council, and that is regional and local councils, play in health. And actually the social determinants of health, which we've talked about a lot today, and that from the perspective of iwi partnership boards, which have a mandate and funding actually from the Crown for at least the next 2 years, there is a desire that that partnership is on the table, that we will be working together on these issues. And we've had a commitment from them to actually engage with us in the space because of the synergy of things like Vision Carpety, actually, and some of the work we have around that, but also because it's about our community as a whole. And dare I say it, some of the words you used earlier, Don, were things about holding people to account. So in some places we may not deliver things, but we definitely have a role to make sure that our community has the things it needs. So I think it's about, as we go forward, making sure that we're holding the right people to account to do what they're there to do. So I thought that was a pleasing insight from the iwi Partnership Board, that actually they are saying that there is a partnership that's required. And so more will come on that. We have to talk a lot more. It's like up here is kind of a little glow of light in our eye, but I thought that was a really great position, because the reason we were engaging with them was to get feedback on our health strategy and what they thought, because we're very aware that they have got plans underway as well. So we've actually had a commitment to work together, and they've invited us to put some things into our strategy about them, which I think is a fantastic step forward. And so I'll let Gina tell us a bit more, but I just want to lean into, I do think there is a mandate for us in the space. That's not to say that we spend a huge amount of ratepayers' funds doing something that's not our job. It's more in that advocacy role, holding people to accounts and helping to convene and facilitate the right conversation. So I did want to start off the conversation with that, because I think Don, thank you for your comments about this being a really great piece of work. I think it fundamentally has the right things in it, and now we're just trying to get input from everybody to make sure we landed in the right space. So I will hand over to Gina. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. So sort of in summary, you will know there was a direction of travel document that we put out for public consultation. We've closed the public consultation and we're looking at the feedback that we've received from that. Generally, the feedback was pretty positive about the fact that we're looking at the right things. As we've noted, there were some questions about how far should local government go into this space. But as Don's made the comment, we do see a role for ourselves in that advocacy space in particular, and in the public health or population health space, there are definitely legislative requirements for us. And we're also working through, I suppose, building in some more of that public health picture and describing the role of council really well, because those are other kind of key pieces of feedback. And getting into some of what Chris has reflected, some of the representation of mana whenua views. So some discussion with iwi Māori partnership boards is on the cards. We've had a discussion with one. We understand that there's a bit of a manaaki, so there are two that technically cover our area. There's Aotearoa Hora, and hold on, I'll just get the name right of the other one. Te Pai Oranga o Rua Hine o Tararua, which covers Otaki. But I understand that there's a bit of a manaaki agreement that might be coming into place to allow the Aotearoa Hora iwi Māori Partnership Board to cover Otaki as well. So we had a really great conversation with them, and as Chris said, they're really keen to work with us. They really understand the crucial role of social determinants of health and the role that local governments have in that space. And I think, yeah, they're really keen to work with us going forward, so we'll have some follow-up conversations. As Chris said, we're moving into the zone of really working with those stakeholders that are important. And making sure that we're all on the same page. So iwi Māori partnership boards we're going to talk to. We've had a conversation with Te Whatu Water leadership, which is in the regional space, so covering the whole of our district, as well as in the local spaces, covering mid-central and coast and Hutt Valley, and the two primary health organisations for our district as well. So Think Hauora, which covers Otaki, and Tuora Compass Health, which covers the rest of our district. And then we want to go a little bit wider and invite a wider group of both health stakeholders, but also potentially getting into the social stakeholders as well. What our goal is for those conversations is to really get on the same page and make sure that we have a collective understanding of the issues, that we're all kind of working in the same direction, so that we're not either duplicating or trying to get in each other's spaces, and being really clear about who's responsible for what. We don't want to get into health service delivery. We don't want to overtake other people's roles. We just want to start that conversation about making sure that we're working together. So that's kind of the next step. We're still planning to have the health strategy finalised in August at the moment, but we do want to make sure that we're having those discussions in the right way. So we may come back with an update on that time frame. Anything else you want to add, Chris?
Could I just add something there, Chair? It's interesting that although the government has disestablished the Maori Health Authority, the Minister at the same time has stressed the importance of working with the iwi Maori Partnership Boards. So there's a balance here between regret that the Maori Health Authorities no longer exists on the one hand, but a reaffirmation that discussion with Maori is essential to going forward. And our iwi, my understanding is that our iwi Maori Partnership Board is based on the Greater Wellington region. So that's the board that we will be relating to. And it may be indicative of the kind of approach that the government will be taking. When Sandra took a team of us up to Levin prior to the election, we met Minister Retty before he was the minister, and he told us that as part of their approach to decentralisation, they were thinking of having a range of regions, fewer than the DHB regions, but nevertheless based on affinities around the country. And that sounded like something like the Greater Wellington region to me. So the question is, when we finally get this government statement, which we're hoping to have in the middle of July, around about the same time as our council will have its strategy discussion, that we may well find out that the importance of the iwi Maori Partnership Board will influence the way in which the country is divided into regions. And that may be the way that they'll overcome this whole question of how to deal with localities. But it's still up in the air.
Thank you. I may just follow up and say, really an insightful comment, Don. When we were speaking with the chair of, I'm going to say, assuming that we landed with one iwi partnership board that we are mainly engaging with, it's really clear to me that it is based around iwi boundaries, not what you might consider to be the Greater Wellington regional boundary. And so I think that's a really different and perhaps useful way to think about how we might be shaping things. So I think there will be further discussion around that. What I was going to say was just to create an understanding of the importance of someone like council working in partnership and putting some things in a strategy for what our community wants. We actually got a bit of a reaction from our PHOs who engaged on our health strategy. And personally, I'm seeing that as a good thing, because part of the purpose of doing this was to say, here's what, here's what we'd like to see happen. They kind of went, what do you mean that's what you'd like to see happen? That's not what you guys should do. And we kind of said, we're speaking for our community about what change we'd like to see. So we'd like your input for it to see what you think. But actually, we need to work together to make sure that we're getting the things that we need to happen in our community. The conversation's really switched and changed, but I just want to say the beauty of everybody having something that they can land on together is that you have the right conversations, you can focus on things that you really want to prioritise and change, and that you should be able to go back to the community and say, we've done this, we've supported others, and where we need to contribute ourselves to do the things that makes a difference. So I just want to say that in closing, because I think sometimes you think of a strategy as a document, that's a thing. That's just the output of the conversation. The really important thing is that we're working together, we're looking at our system and our sector and making sure that we're trying to bring a local and central government or organisation conversation to the table. So that's what we hope it does. And I think with the advisory groups that we have and how we're setting ourselves up, we're really well positioned to actually start to tip into some of those really important issues. So I just wanted to leave my final comment with that.
I think something I wanted to flag there as well is that we're talking about the Māori connection, but we also need to be conscious of the Otaki connection as well, and how we're bringing that connection along with us.
Oh, sorry.
Just pop.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say absolutely, and I think that's part of the a point of talking about the system. So part of what we're doing is making sure that everybody who's involved in these topic areas has a chance to be involved. So that includes working down in Waitaki with the various groups that exist down there, and I do say various because there's more than one, and also across the rest of the district. So we're trying to make sure that anybody with an interest or a role actually as part of the conversation and has a chance to have their say. So we've definitely been doing that. So, and that's why Gina was saying we've had relatively positive feedback. It's an early stage of getting everyone together necessarily in the same conversation, but it's actually needed. And when we do come back with the next stage of actually talking more formally about the health strategy, we will bring up with you all the groups that we've actually been engaging with and who we've heard from, just for completeness, so you know that we haven't missed anybody out.
Look, I'm just conscious of time, guys. We've got to wind this up. Yep, pretty quick. Nigel, you've got something very quick?
Yeah, I do actually. Just to say that that's very reassuring, because what we've had is a series of overtly racist statements from ministers regarding Maori health, and I find that hugely concerning, as do iwi, and they've expressed it right around the country. So I think it's really important that, regardless of the dictates from on high, that we maintain those strong working relationships in our area anyway, right? And so I think that's really important, and so the reassurance of that is fabulous.
Excellent. Kathy, so sorry, coming back to Gina, do you have anything else you wanted to add into that? Okay, Gina, Kathy, do I have you as a mover for the, do I have a seconder for that? Seconder Lawrence, all those in favour? Aye, that motion's passed. Thank you very much. We could then skip on to 9.1. I think it is. we've had the update on the, you don't have to do anything in regards to that. And then 9.1 was the, regards the budget aspect of things. Jenny, if you want to give us a quick update?
Yeah, happy to take paper as read. Just really briefly, we had the sign off for the 23-24 work program of the Subcommittee Health Advisory Group. This is just rolling that over into 24-25 and making a note that we'll cover about $5,000 worth of budget to support them within baseline.
This is in current budgets, is that correct?
Correct,
Yep,
yeah.
That's fantastic. Any questions? So moved, that's excellent. Thank you for moving that. Kathy, do I have a seconder? Seconder, thank you, Mike. All those in favour? All right, that's passed. Thank you very much. Marvellous piece of work there. Look, one person I have, Kirsten, you've been sitting quite quietly on the screen behind us. You got anything you'd like to add into the conversation briefly at all as we look to wind up?
Lots of things I'd like to add, but I think I feel like we're out of time, and so I don't want to start that convo now. But next meeting maybe. I guess maybe I'll add one comment if we're going to do a recommendation about the
street race.
Yeah, about that. I do support the idea. I know it's crazy, right? What's going on, but I do support the suggestion about reaching out to the group and talking with them. You know, the comments about the upstream and what's happening and why we arrive at something about like this is quite important, because we could have a really strong reaction and stop it, but if it's not actually dealt with properly, it'll just pop up somewhere else or in another way. So reaching out to the group and finding out why we're in this sort of situation and looking for solutions will be helpful. But yeah, I do feel like it's a police.
It is a police issue.
Responsibility, and yeah, serious issue where they knew about it a long time before and didn't do something. So yeah, I do feel like there's something to do for that matter.
Lovely.
But thanks, good meeting, lots of info.
Okay, sorry, Mayor Janet, I was just going to put you on the spot a little bit. In regards to, we had Jackie Elliott here earlier with regards to the issue up there. It was pointed out that you are addressing this directly, but we were looking at putting a motion, a recommendation that we can allow to follow through on.
Sorry, was this an urgent nature, notice of motion? How is the recommendation coming to the table? What report does it refer to? You can't just have random recommendations.
It was just more a follow up on with regards to what's happening in the space.
I'll commit to following up. I don't think it needs a recommendation. I'll follow up at the next meeting. I agree with the mayor.
Okay. I did make a commitment to Jackie with regards to that. So I think following up at the next meeting is maybe a little bit too far away. That's 6 weeks away. And this is it's something that the community board up there has got a big issue with and needs to be addressed. Should we say?
So I've been in communication with Jackie.
Yep.
The last email I had, I was waiting for advice from Darren. Darren has gone to our legal team to get some advice around her suggestions, and I believe that's coming today or tomorrow, and then we'll get back to Jackie after that. Happy to forward that to the rest of the committee as well.
I'm quite happy with that as a.
Yep.
Yep. So and we just keep on top of that and keep it going through. I'm happy with that as a solution. I'm happy to talk to Jackie about that as well.
Yeah. I'll give you my word that I'll follow up with the committee via email. Okay.
Everyone okay with that? Okay. So I certainly don't want that to the OT Community Board to feel like that's a bit of a cop out, and it's not from us with regards to following that up. But we will keep on top of that. I think even as councillors. It seems like a situation that's gotten out of hand really, really fast and potentially has a lot of leeway for bad publicity for our district as well, which we don't want to see. On that note, anything else I need to be?
Actually, the email's just come in with the legal advice, so I'll have a look at that and then I'll have a chat with Darren and I'll get back to you. It'll be in the next couple of days.
Now, we've just got to do the confirmation of the minutes, which is... Yep, so that's so moved. I have a seconder for that. Fantastic. All those in favour? Aye, so that's moved. We will just now wind the meeting up with a...
Oh, sorry, I was telling them.
Sorry, what was that?
I was just telling them who the seconder was.
Oh, okay. And anyone have a go at the crack at the closing karakia?
should be.
Oh, actually, that's not on the program. Okay. Kathy, you can do this in the English version if you like. You got.
I'll wait till you sit.
Thank you.
May blessings be upon us all and our business be successful, so that our words endure and our language endures. May the spirit be strong. May Māori be settled and in balance. Among the activities we will do today, join, gather and unite. Forward together. What a beautiful karakia.
Huia humie. Tākia. With that, we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for the people that came in today. I thought it was an excellent meeting, a lot of information there, and great to see our subgroups getting on and doing the mahi in a real positive way. And now we move into the twilight zone.